We're pleased to be joined by phone by the retired Air Force general, the former director of both the National Security Agency and the Central Intelligence Agency, Michael Hayden, and joining us via satellite from Washington, D.C., the founder and president of Americans for Tax Reform, Grover Norquist. Grover's here to talk more about the political fallout, but let's deal first and foremost with possible military action and the impact on our national security. General Hayden, what do you make of the president's strategy? Is it really going to do the job?
Well, JD, first of all, good morning, and thanks for having me back. I think we're in a far better place today than we were 48 hours ago. I think what the president said last night was a very positive step. Let me give you my personal experience with it. I had to write an op-ed for this morning's papers. Decided I should write it about the president's speech, but I had to write it before he gave the speech. So I'm sitting out in Los Angeles thinking, all right, what is it I want the president to say? What is it I expect the president to say? And I wrote the article based upon those lines, and of course it couldn't go final until the president spoke. I was in the air from Los Angeles while he was giving the speech, had Wi-Fi, got a copy of what he said, and JD, I didn't have to change but a couple of words in what I had prepared. So that's a pretty good barometer from my personal perspective that he said what had to be said. Now, some of this stuff's tough. There's still some ambiguities there, but on balance, I'm very happy with the plan the president laid out yesterday.
Grover, as we take a look politically at what's going on, Senator Dan Coats, Republican of Indiana, a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, said he was concerned the president was overestimating the ability of pro-Western rebels to respond to ISIS and that the president exaggerated successes in Yemen and Somalia. Are those a couple of problem points in the president's speech from last night, Grover?
Yes. Look, we have a challenge. The president came in, his legacy was going to be he was going to walk away from all of Bush's mistakes. And he was going to foreign policy, and he pushed a reset button with Russia, and a whole series. His narrative of what was happening in the world was not in line with what developed. He was going to spend all his time on domestic politics and nationalize health care and things like that. That's not worked out very well. And 2 years in, people took the House of Representatives away from him. He's flailing around for a legacy, and he's now grasped on. He's dancing on a plate full of marbles. If you're going to fight with Syria, you've got the Soviet Union, Russia on Syria's side. If you're taking on Syria and ISIL at the same time, that's a huge project. It's not a small project that he's working with. Now, I suppose you'd rather talk about this than unemployment or low growth or debt or spending between now and election, but he's been so driven by politics for the last 6 years that you just wonder how he's going to manage a serious war and the politics that he's been working on. I mean, what are his speeches going to look like? I suppose if he talks about this, he doesn't have to talk about things that he said were going to happen about job creation.
Gentlemen, a little more than 2 minutes remain. General Hayden, to you. We just heard Grover outline the political landscape in Washington. Grover used the word legacy. What about the word necessity? Has the president finally recognized that strong military action is a necessity in this case, Mike?
Absolutely, JD. This is not a speech the president wanted to give. Look, here's a man who personally committed and politically rewarded for reducing American involvement abroad and bringing the troops home from Iraq and Afghanistan. And reality has forced him to have what I called in my article that my fellow Americans moment. I don't think he ever wanted to be there, but he was there out of necessity, and I'm glad he got himself there before it was way too late.
Mike, 2 minutes remain. A geopolitical note. We hear ISIS, we hear ISIL. Can you tell us the difference, if there is one, in identifying the new enemy we have?
Yeah, it's a matter of convention. It depends on what language you're referring to. ISIL is the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. Others say ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq, and now Sham, which is the Arabic word for the Levant. Not much of a distinction. between them. It's just a matter of convention. I started with ISIS. I'm sticking with ISIS.
Fair enough. I think most of us are. A guy who stuck to a strategy, changed it when he needed to, was the former Commander-in-Chief George W. Bush, for whom Mike worked so long. Grover, we're going to take a listen to President Bush with almost a bit of presidential prophecy from 2007.
I know some in Washington would like us to start leaving Iraq now. To begin withdrawing before our commanders tell us we're ready would be dangerous for Iraq, for the region, and for the United States. It would mean surrendering the future of Iraq to Al-Qaeda. It mean that we'd be risking mass killings on a horrific scale. It would mean we allow the terrorists to establish a safe haven in Iraq to replace the one they lost in Afghanistan.
Okay, Grover, 15 seconds. Last word. Was President Bush and his warning, have those warnings now come full circle?
Obama owns this mess. It happened under his watch. He made decisions that could have gone in different ways. ISIL exists because of decisions he's made, and he's got to clean up that mess. But he made it, or he made a lot.
We'll be right back. Thanks.